So the gut is, so we could start with the mouth. You put something in your mouth, and there are two things you could put in your mouth. Okay, only two things. Let's look at it. So the plants or the animals, that's all. We could of course put synthetic things in our bodies, in our mouths, like eat piece of rubber, eat some plastic. I know we are doing a lot of that, specifically plastic. We are eating a lot of plastic in the real situation right now, due to the bottles and stuff that we put our foods in, microwaving it in plastics and stuff. So we do eat plastics, but we come back that it's either plant or animals, because we are looking at this from a nutritional point of view. Now, if you put plants in the acidic stomach, the plants want to move out quickly. That's why they would move plants into discussion of the plants that are with fiber, to slow down the process of the acidic stomach holding. And these plants would be plants, as we know, with more fibrous, more I can't say whole food because everything is whole, but more fibrous things would stay here a little bit longer, because the fibers would irritate the lining of the stomach to create stomach acidity. Now, stomach acidity causes down here pyloric sphincter to close. When the stomach acid is high, it would close here and it would close up here, which is called the lower esophageal sphincter. They would close because they want to protect both the small intestine and the upper part, which is called the esophagus. We have to protect it, so we close here when the stomach acid is at its correct pH 1 and 2. So you put plants here, it doesn't want to stay long, so the stomach acidity does not get as acidic as it should be, which is pH 1 or 2, and that causes you to, well, get the plants to move here in a fast time. So if you eat any plant product, you basically are moving out of the stomach within 30 minutes to an hour. If it is refined plants, for example refined bread, which is the wheat, when it is processed you make it into bread, it's refined. And any refined plant product, so don't get too confused, any refined plant product gets to move inside here quickly and move out quickly. In fact, fruits also, which is not refined, fruits also move here quickly and out quickly, because if you test yourself, you would realize that the fruit would get absorbed. I mean, if you have a blood glucose monitor, you could take fruit in and see how quick your blood sugars spike, and that would give you a very good indication of how fast this fruit would have stayed in the stomach and get out. Now, there are many tricks that you would learn to keep things in the stomach for a little bit longer. Things like eat a higher fiber, soluble fiber like inulin, have apple cider vinegar to acidify this, so when the stomach gets any sort of acid, it closes, so it holds things inside it longer. So for example, they will tell you take apple cider vinegar before you eat your carbs, and it would help. Yes, because the apple cider vinegar is making here acidic, and once the stomach becomes the more acidic than its whatever state it is, it tends to lock the two valves for protection of the human. So having natural stomach acidity is the best thing, but of course eating plants does not call on or force the parenchymal cells or the gastrin to produce the high hydrochloric acid in its right capacity. So we end up having that challenge here, and of course a numerous amount of challenge for plant-based eaters. The numerous amount of challenge largely would also lead to fast movement of a plant that might be good in protein, would not get enough time to sit here and be well acidified. So the protein from the plant, or what we call the amino acid from the plant protein, would not get properly decoiled, and it enters here, and the amount that you get from plant, I mean, science is clear on that, it's not in the adequate amount because it is not properly digested. So tricks like acidifying your stomach for when you're eating those beans, peas, legumes does help, because it keeps these things here, and once these things stay inside here, the plant-based protein sources, once it stays here, what we have a better appreciation for the plant-based to actually be denatured on coil, and better chances for pepsin to also awaken. Now the same rule applies to animal, but This is more towards the acidic stomach as designed. So when you eat animal or meat, you then get to keep things here. So it's natural, it should be like that, but it's also challenging because we have flipped our way with meat. So what is happening here, you eat meat, you would see that the meat should stay 2-3 hours to acidify, and for the same process to happen, proper acidification awakens pepsin to so denaturing takes place. Pepsin cuts it down into polypeptides, smaller polypeptides, di and tri amino acids to move it down here, and so they get really down into the molecular state of amino acids. Now if you eat meat and you have like beef and other foods, meat like that, you also have minerals that are not available in all plants, but you have minerals in these meats that would become also digested in the acidic environment. You have the fatty acids that also becomes kind of exposed for digestion in the acidic environment. And the minerals here, including vitamins like B12, have specific pathways that needs to be awakened. So taking oral vitamin B12 could be challenging for a plant-based eater if you don't learn the criticality of having an acidic stomach. So we take vitamin B12 and we think it's not working. We realize it's not working. The blood level serum of B12 is not going up, and even though the blood level serum level might go up for B12, we will see why the B12 challenges continues, because it's not for the blood to have B12. Nobody cares about the blood having B12. If you have B12 in the blood, then you have to ask yourself, is that the goal? We'll look at that in a subsequent video. However, here is where the challenges lie. If the acidification process does not hit the critical threshold of pH 1 and 2 and does not wake up pepsin and does not wake up intrinsic factor and wake up the other enzymes to break down these things, we have challenge. And it takes some time to do that, and it takes the right concentration and pH levels of the acidity. So a meat-based eater wanting to be in the best state would understand why Moses would say in Exodus 16 to eat your meat in the evening by itself, because he is generally telling us the principle of getting the stomach to be in the best acidic state is to have meat in the stomach for a long period of time by itself. No glucose, no carbohydrates, no plants mix with your meat. So if you eat like that in the evening, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and you eat your meat, your beef, your ruminant animals, according to Moses, your eggs and your fish, if that is what you want, meat of the land, meat of the sea, meat of the air, and you eat them by themselves. When I say by themselves, we mean meat, or you could eat meat together, but eat them by themselves generally. The only meat we should mix is the one from the air with the land, or the one from the air with the sea. We should not mix the one from the sea with the one from the land together. Also a different pattern of behavior. For example, a piece of beef is hard, a piece of fish is soft. So you may eat eggs with beef, but you may not want to eat fish and beef together. You may want to eat beef, if that is your meal, beef and eggs. And if the meat is, if it's fish, then generally you don't eat fish and eggs, but you could also do fish and eggs, but just eat eggs and poultry, air, land and sea, and have the stomach acidity recalling itself and returning with gastrin being healed and with the right amount of hydrochloric acid being formed, because that would give the stomach the time. Because if you eat in the evening like that, you are going to rest, and so you have 3-4 hours where the meat stays in the stomach to become well denatured, well soaked in the acid, well denatured. The pepsin wakes up, the hydrochloric acid wakes up the pepsin, it wakes up the intrinsic factors, they come and they start doing the work. So pepsin comes to do the work directly on the long chain of proteins, right, to break it down into polypeptides, whereas intrinsic factor, that's just the name of the enzyme, it comes to look for B12 and some other type of vitamins, and it starts extracting them from the meat. And so that's why it is so important to leave these things in your stomach for a while. Now, as I said earlier on, if you eat in plants, then you are not leaving these things in the stomach. Plants normally would make because of the carb glucose content, it would tamper down the acidity and so it would, once the acidity falls, the pyloric splinter would then start opening and dumping into the duodenum and then down into the small intestine. Now once you do that with meat, you have not gotten the nutrients from the meat. You need to have the meat staying long inside the stomach, as long as inside the acidic stomach. For those persons who are getting onto this kind of way of understanding, you may have to do some extra work of helping your stomach with some biotin HCI, apple cider vinegar, acidifying your food first, but not to go out extent of doing this, but to do it from a point of view of supporting the stomach. Now this video is long, it's 10 minutes. I hope you would have gotten the point. This next video in this series, we will look at the small intestine and what is happening there. So this is part 1. Thank you for viewing, and more than welcome.